Well, welcome everyone to Startup 101, specifically designed for the Filipino American community. Super excited that we have folks joining here from all over the country, or North America, rather, folks in Mexico or Canada as well. But we're excited to have you all here. My name is Christeen Rico Green, and I am the founder and CEO of Dream Bigger, one of the co-hosts for tonight, along with my esteemed colleagues. We have Julius Alejandro, founder of Julius Alejandro Consulting, here on the call, who you will hear a lot more from in just a little bit. And then, of course, Maria Racho, the founder of Kapwa Capital, who you'll hear from in a sec as well. And we also want to, of course, acknowledge our various partners, some of whom are on this call, who've been very supportive in all our efforts. Thank you to our partners who've been very supportive in all our efforts, especially this year as we've traveled around the country connecting with Filipino Americans in the startup ecosystem. So if you go to the next slide, Julius. Dream Bigger is a platform that aims to unlock values-aligned partnerships for Filipino-led startups. Currently, we operate in the Philippines as well as here in the United States. If you go to the next slide, our dream really is to uplift the lives of 10 million Filipinos through Filipino-led technology entrepreneurship. And yeah, we're super excited to be in the early stages of this journey. But for me, this is really a lifelong mission. And I'm excited to be working alongside people like yourselves who are also passionate about entrepreneurship and in uplifting Filipino lives all around the country. So if you go to the next slide, earlier I said we're here to unlock values-aligned partnerships. So what do we mean by that? Our values are distilled into these 5 core ideas, which are number 1, wholeness and becoming healthy holistically in mind, body, spirit, and relationships. We really want to see founders who are thriving, yes, in their business, but also in their family and also in their broader community. We want to see founders who really embrace the freedom to create out of a motivation that is bigger than themselves. We want to see founders who are building with empathy and really taking that time to understand the people that they're serving, which we believe is a starting point from the most awesome innovations. We want to advance generosity and create that culture where folks in our community are experiencing joy, not just in getting, but experiencing more joy in giving as well. And then finally, our 5th value is legacy, and really cultivating ambition for building something that will last even beyond our lifetimes. And so those are our 5 core values as a Dream Bigger platform. And we hope that our programs and our experiences that we're creating with founders, funders, mentors all over the world are helping to bring these values to life in our community. And practically, what do we do? So if you go to the next slide, here in 2024, we have 3 big things happening. Number 1, in the Philippines, where I have most of my team out there, we run an accelerator. We're in our 4th cohort, and this actually started this month. It's a 6-month accelerator for Filipino-led early stage tech startups in the Philippines. And then here in the United States, for many of you joining us from North America, we have our Dream Bigger Challenge pitch competition for Filipino American entrepreneurs who are building here in North America. And that's going to be on Friday, October 25 in the Bay Area. We'll all be joining live in person in the Bay Area. And this event will gather 100 plus of the most promising Filipino American startup founders, active investors, and ecosystem supporters live in person in the Bay Area, where we'll get to learn more about our Filipino American startup ecosystem, hear from folks who've been on the journey for a long time. And of course, we will hear pitches from 12 early stage founders who will be pitching for a chance to win grant prizes, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the last thing I'll mention here for Dream Bigger is our Dream Bigger Immersion program, which is really designed for Filipino Americans or just folks around the world who want to explore possible ways to give back to the Philippines through entrepreneurship or investing. And that's going to be happening in November. If we go to the next slide, I just want to double click real quick on the Dream Bigger Challenge. So again, this is designed for Filipino American or Filipinos in North America, startups with at least one Filipino American co-founder. They should have at least an MVP with a growing number of customers over the last several months, be incorporated ideally in the United States, and then the founder must be able to attend live in the Bay Area for the actual pitch event. The application is due July 28th. We've actually extended the deadline just to allow for more participation. And if you go to the next slide, what do founders get, right? So we will be awarding first, second, and third place prizes at the Dream Bigger Challenge. And all the participants will also get access to be part of this curated network of investors, mentors, potential partners that have a commitment to supporting Filipino American entrepreneurs. And you'll get continued access to Dream Bigger's global community and events. So if you scan this QR code, it'll take you directly to that application for the Dream Bigger Challenge. And we hope that today's Startup 101 webinar will help folks here who may be on the fence about applying. It'll give you some more of that confidence that you might need to go for it and apply for the challenge, whether it's this year or maybe in a future year. We hope that today's Startup 101 session will just be helpful along your journey as an entrepreneur. And of course, we go to the next slide. I want to acknowledge our national co-sponsors. Dream Bigger would not be here without the help of so many people from around the world. And in particular, for the Dream Bigger Challenge, we want to thank Archangel Impact Capital, which is the first Filipino-led, faith-driven impact fund that invests in companies that are uplifting Filipino lives. They're one of our national co-sponsors. Hey April, the founder of Hey April's here. Arjul, shout out to you. A public benefit corporation building a community of highly skilled remote U.S. accounting professionals in the Philippines. STAC Silicon Valley, which is a 501c3 that's focused on helping to advance science and technology, entrepreneurial initiatives in the Philippines, Silicon Valley, and beyond. Thank you to our national co-sponsors and, of course, our community partners that you see here, FilPro, the Philippine Consulate in San Francisco Filipino American Chamber of Commerce, and the government of Daly City. We want to thank them for their support in our efforts. And, of course, last but not least, Capua Capital. In the flesh with us is Maria Racho, the founder of Capua Capital, who'll share more about her organization. Over to you, Maria.
Awesome. Thanks, Christine. Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Odiamar Racho, based out of Chicago. I'm the founder of Capua Capital. Capua Capital is a syndicate of those that are angel curious, mixed with very serial angel investors. And we've come together in community to build capabilities to increase awareness of what angel investing is. My team and I then vet companies, and our thesis is focused on underserved founders, so Asian American and those from other historically underrepresented communities. We've had in our pipeline an incredible, talented pool of Filipino American founders, which I think you'd all be very proud of. But our mission is really to be able to build bridges between communities of these underserved communities in building wealth from the investment side and being able to democratize and access capital from the founder side. So it's really an honor to be here today, and an honor to be partnered with Christine in the Dream Bigger Challenge. So with that, I am really honored to introduce our speaker for today, Julius Alejandro. So through our journey, Christine started this vision with a city tour, which started in New York and has just been growing and evolving. We've been meeting with founder ecosystems across the nation, and it's really been incredible. And what we've seen is, there are some communities where it's really thriving and communities are coming together. They're really supporting our founders. But we also find communities where there's really a desire and need to understand what even is a startup, like really just understanding that there's these pathways into entrepreneurship. So that's where this idea of doing the Startup 101 came. And Julius was an incredible advocate from his community, saying, for one, hey, bring it here to San Diego. But for another, here's my experience and insights, and I'd love to share and provide that for others. So a little bit about Julius. He's an adjunct faculty in entrepreneurship, business consultant, and a nonprofit executive. With over 15 years of experience in grassroots organizing, the nonprofit sector, and startup ecosystems that have crossed intersections from economic development to health disparities that affect communities of color. He strives for innovative approaches for solving social issues through collaborations. Julius received his master's in organizational leadership from National University and a bachelor's degree in sociology from San Diego State University. Also, he has a green belt in Lean Six Sigma from SDSU and a certificate from Notre Dame University in foresight and innovation. And so with that, thank you, Julius, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Cool. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Um, so the purpose of this is just an overview of the startup ecosystem as a whole, from the founder side to the funding side and anything in between. It's a high-level overview. We're not trying to get into the weaves of it, but I know some will have questions. We're gonna save it for the Q&A. So, but please put in the chat. We'll have Maria monitoring the chat and kind of summarize some themes. It maybe come from funding, operations, so forth. But for a purpose, please refrain from questions and just put in the chat. That'd be awesome. So the big picture. What's the difference between a startup and a small business? You know, people think like, oh, that's a startup and you're selling shoes. Well, not really. Just a distinction. In startup, it's a corporation. It's called in the Dream Bigger Challenge, you saw Delaware C Corp compared to privately owned, but essentially it's a size. Small business are localized in their community, the San Diego community, Chicago, a certain section of the community, and they're using an existing tried-true model, like example, like a mom and pop pizza shop. That's something that's a small business. It's helping the local economy, restaurants, repair shops, compared to startups. It's all about scale. It's about using new disruptive technology. Example would be AI, Web3, and crypto. And they want to grow not just from locally, statewide, but also nationally and globally. And distinction in startup is issuing a stock to shareholders because it's to intake venture capital fund. And again, we're going to talk about that later on. But that's a distinction. Small business is very localized and it's a tried and true model. Example, it's like a restaurants and repair shops compared to startups, which is using disruptive emerging technologies like AI, which is the hot topic right now. So with that, some well-known individuals regarding who have a Filipino ancestry is Melanie Perkins. I'm pretty sure everyone here have used Canva or encountered Canva. She is the co-founder and CEO of Canva. And Robert Murphy has Filipino heritage, co-founder of Snapchat, and Sheila Leario Marcelo is the founder of care.com. So there are FilAms out there, or sorry, Filipinos out there who are startup founders. Not a lot, but they're out there, especially well-known brands that we kind of use on their daily lives, Canva, Snapchat, and care.com. So again, what is the innovation economy? If you Google it, there is actually no clear definition, but you will hear it around as buzzword. It's the same thing as startup. Everything's a startup, everything's a startup. Not really. Once you go into the weaves of it, you can understand like, okay, there's really distinction, especially what's the innovation economy. It's a concept pioneered by Harvard in 1942, and it consists of 3 interactions of disruptive innovation. So again, emerging technologies that are happening, which is example, AI and crypto. Those are kind of emerging technology that's kind of disrupting of the daily lives. Again, it's also the knowledge economy. We need folks to actually able to build and implement these goods and services, right? So again, so we need the software developers, the UX folks, and actually the entrepreneurs themselves who organize and operate the businesses. So again, in the US is it's a perfect agglomeration of all those, because again, this the US is founded on entrepreneurship. It encouraged and demands entrepreneurship and disruption and innovation. So the US is a perfect storm for disruptive technology. We have the knowledge workers for it, and we encourage entrepreneurship. We have a great entrepreneur infrastructure in this country. Some examples, as you can tell, let me zero in on Wikipedia, right? Before, who remembers in grade school, middle school, where they have to take out a book and actually look at for facts? Well, that's no longer exists because it still exists, but we still have Wikipedia now. Anyone in their laptop or handheld device can go to the app and search anything they want. Blockbusters. Blockbusters no longer exists. There's only one left in the US because Netflix has disrupted. So again, in rideshare, right? Who would have thought that we're gonna like go into someone's car to get to another place? Again, these are sustaining innovations that was disrupted by these innovations that we're using in our daily lives. So these are some examples of what innovation is, disruptions. So in order for change to happen for startups, there needs to be an ecosystem. Basically, the infrastructure in place from the universities, research organizations, service providers, funders, and the startups themselves and big companies to invest both time, money, and technology to grow this ecosystem, to foster a startup or community. And we're gonna go deep dive on each one. The first one is what's the name of a startup? So what makes a startup a startup, right? And again, it's some key terms. Okay. So we're gonna go each one of these key terms so people can understand. I think one thing I'm encountering when I talk to individuals who are like, even in local government, is even the term founders, even the term founders is kind of foreign to them. They're like, what's a founder? I've been in meetings with directors on high level government. They're like, they'd say, hey, Jules, you keep using this founder term. Like, what's a founder? Well, they're entrepreneurs. They're individuals who are co-founded who actually owns a company that started the company. So that's what founders are. And at the start, they have the majority share of the company. So when we say founders, what we're really saying publicly is entrepreneur. So if you started a startup or a company, you're considered a founder. It's kind of loose term, but essentially just what kind of founder is. And you have more than one person that started, then you're a co-founder. It's like, hey, these are my co-founders. I'm a co-founder of this. Okay. So that's even just this term founder, it's outside of the ecosystem. People are like, get surprised, like, what's that mean? So again, just for point of clarification. And again, our favorite term is called for any startup is finding the product market fit. It's coined by Anderson Horowitz. It's one of the biggest venture firms out there, and essentially is finding your product and the right market that wants it. Okay, constant validation. So essentially, when every pitch, every investor is always asking startups and even startups themselves, it's like, where is our product market fit? Where can our product strive? Example would be like top of head, this Airbnb, right? That's anywhere, including cities like the tourist destinations. There's a demand for tourist areas, for places that want low kind of more affordable housing for temporary stay. So like Airbnb is a good it's a good example of they found their modern product market fit because they can go anywhere, especially tourist destination, which is globally, North America, Europe, Asia, and so forth. And again, lean startup method It's basically the ideology of every startup. You know, if there's like a how-to, then everyone goes to the Lean Startup Method by Eric Ries, using MVP to validate a product market fit through build, measure, learn. And what does that mean? Essentially, it's saying create something. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be an app with bugs, but the whole point is you bring it out to market and you let the customers play around with it and saying, I don't like this, but I like this. And then you go back to drawing board and you improve upon it. It's example why we have always have apps updates, right? Version 1 through version 1.5, version 2, 2.7, and so forth. Again, it's all this build, measure, learn. It's the basically startup ideology. It's the essentially the doctrine of every startup is build, measure, learn. Create something, it's not perfect. We understand that. But again, the market is going to play around with it and they're going to make suggestions. Go back to the drawing board. Again, it's more efficient to save costs compared to spending thousands of dollars on something that the market doesn't want. So in order to prevent that, they use the lean starter method. You create something small, the most basic, and they build upon it based upon market demands. And again, we're going to continue with the key terms. You know, this is kind of get into the weaves of it, but I think it's really important, especially equity. So when you have co-founders, right, you share. This is an example. If 4 people are, you know, co-founded, like, hey, we're going to start this company. Equity, share, and ownership. Okay, it's a percentage of ownership of a company. You know, and it's divided. And there's school of thoughts, every school of thoughts like, hey, let's all be even, right? 25, 25, 25 out of 100. But essentially the startup community frowns upon that because again, it's practicality. It's how much time does each person gives. If everyone gets 25%, but doing 10% work, while someone's doing 80% of the work, is that fair? But then again, legally, because they decide the percentage, that's what legally they're bounded to. So it's one of those things we encourage founders to like, okay, here's all of us, here's 100% of the pie, we got to divide it. How you divide it is usually based upon the commitment and how much each individual is going to contribute in building the company. So it's one of those tough conversations that you need to have in the forefront. So just like, let's even out because some are gonna do more work and others and put more time. But once things gets legally signed, you're bound by it. So that's something to consider when it comes to equity, shares, and ownership, especially when you take investors. And we're gonna go to that, and Maria and Christeen can give their valuable opinion. But essentially, equity is a give and take. You know, shares because you not just for your founding team, but you always have to consider about outside venture investors and also your employees, future employees. It's a lot of things to consider, but again, this is a general overview. So in this case, I uneven it, but again, it's 100% pie. Intellectual property. This is something investors will be asking about. It's like, hey, is it protected? Okay, intellectual property is a broad category, but it's basically patents to legally protect what you're creating. Okay, or else it'll get copied and it'll be duplicated, and you basically lost your clear advantage in the market. Again, you'll hear terms like patent pending. Patent pending is the pending part is in the process, but essentially this is something that investors look for, and especially in new technology that is protected. Again, if they want to invest in something, we'll make sure it's okay. And pitch deck. This is essentially 1 to 13 is generally, so basically a pitch deck is a glorified PowerPoint. Even Canva has a pitch deck now, but each slide should cover these certain topics. And again, I reviewed over like 200 pitch decks. please do not have block of text, okay? Each one, keep it simple. The whole point of a pitch deck, it's a calling card. It's to get you to that next meeting. I guarantee you put a pitch deck, they will not sign the check on the spot. An investor will not sign a check on the spot. It's to get you to that next meeting. It's never get you to the meeting, is to that next meeting, to the next meeting. Again, it's a relationship building, like Maria and Christeen can get more once we get into the funding side. But essentially, 1 to 13 is the most kind of basic slides. And let me give you an example. The best example is Airbnb. This is their problem side. This is their humble beginning, you know. Their problem that they saw was the price was too high for these hotels. And these hotels feels disconnected to the cities and culture. And there's no way to like book a home with locals and be immersed in that culture in Europe, Asia, or anywhere else. So they decide their solution is like, hey, let's save some money when traveling, make money for hosting, and again, share the culture. Simple. So problem and the solutions are one slide each. Again, the pitch deck is meant to be a calling card. It's to get you to that meeting, to start the whole process of a potential investment. And burn rate. Burn rate is it's typically used to describe the rate of how much money is a company burning per month to basically keep the lights on. Here's an example. Your burn rate's $1 million, which means the company's spending $1 million per month on overhead and everything. You know, it's called, and essentially, which leads to the runway. How long is your runway? How long until you have no more money until, and worst case scenario, the company shuts down. So you hear burn rate and you'll hear what's your runway until you don't have any more cash on hand and you have to close, which we don't want. And NDA, these are non-disclosure agreement, legal binding, saying, hey, you will not release any information or business processes. You might want to hire a lawyer because each state laws have been changing about NDAs and so forth. So, but essentially, it's NDA to protect trade secrets and any confidential information. And this and Maria and Christeen, if you want to talk about help add here to the startup life cycle. I know the typical valuations have changed because of the funding client landscape. So you want to share about that?
So I would say it's really all over the board. Valuation very early on is usually determined by the founder, and later rounds, it's like the founder, like the investors, when there's a lead investor, will determine terms, negotiate terms with the founder and what the valuation is. But maybe at a high level, Julius, we talk about what that startup life cycle is. Very early stage at this pre-seed. You know, this is where the founders really just kind of, here's the problem and I'm trying to solve, and I'm trying to see, are there enough people out there that want this problem solved? Are there enough people that will pay for this problem? And then, you know, whoever those people are, those would be like the customers. And then in seed, you're starting to then, like at pre-seed and seed, you're like, you have a solution around, you know, what could solve that problem. And you're starting to get validation that from the market that, yes, this is something that people will pay for, and you start to get some traction. And then as you get further on, like the Series A, Series B, all of that, that is really kind of the scaling point where it's like, now I have a problem that is that people want solved, and I have a solution to solve it. Now, how do I actually get it out to market? What's my go-to-market strategy? And then how do I find enough of a market that's going to really pay for this and that is going to help this company grow to be able to serve a much larger market? And then that's where it gets from Series A, B, C, D, E, F. You go through the alphabet until some point of exit. And then that exit is like, I'm sorry, Julius, I just took over.
No,
But,
this is collaborative.
yeah, and then that
Yeah.
it comes to some exit. And so when Julius talked about like what's a startup versus a small business, a startup is really a venture scalable company. So me and Christine as, venture capitalists or angels, we're really on a timeline that this is a company that's on a fast trajectory that is looking to have some type of exit at the very latest between the next 7 to 10 years. And in those 7 to 10 years, that exit means an acquisition or going public. And that exit is a liquidation. That's like a liquidation activity. That's when the return to the investors comes in. And so those are venture backable companies. And it's a very like fast pace. If you think about a company going from zero to going public in, a 7 to 10 years, some even shorter, it's a very fast pace.
Yeah. And so, which is a good leadway, Maria, to start our funding 101. So there's different mechanisms, funding mechanisms, bootstraps, F&F, or friends and family, venture capital, and angel investors. So you will hear this term from founders, especially early stage founders. It's like, I'm bootstrapping. So what does that mean? Basically, founders are using their personal money to fund their business. This personal money is their daytime jobs. I have met founders who are, I kid you not, they put up their own homes for their business. That is facts. Like, min is rare, but it happens. They're like, yeah, I put up my house, for my business. Or you know what? They are working like overtime, they're 9 to 5 and more. And I see them at evening events and they tell me I just gotta work, but I got paid for, this next thing, potential. So bootstrapping is essentially using their own personal money and even assets, you know, especially in the early stage. Friends and family round are as their personal network of funding. Typically, I mean, it's essentially friends and family. They say between 10K and 150K if you have those kind of friends and family, but essentially it's asking your friends and family, within your own personal network for funding, and it's because they feel loyalty and affection for the founders or motivated by the startup ideas. So again, they're within your network. Okay, so we call it F and F. So friends and family rounds. And venture capital. So VCs are private investment firms with a fund that injects thousands to millions of capital into venture backable startups, while angel investors are private individuals using their own wealth. So VC firms are institutions and angel investors are private individuals. And we'll get into more. So this is the general structure of a venture capital firm. Okay. Essentially, they get limited partners. Limited partners are as you can see here, they're your insurance companies, your pension funds, endowments, other angel investors, to come in and pull their money. And the VC, so they give it. So essentially, these LPs, they go to this venture fund, and this venture fund says, okay, we will create venture fund capital fund 1, fund 2. They give a kind of name, but essentially the VC firm, they are legally saying to this venture capital firm, like, hey, we are trusting you to make the actually educated investment. I'll just say that, right? Educated investment based upon your due diligence, so how do VCs get paid? They take about 20% profit in the form of management fee of the fund. And in this case, the venture capital fund would then be invested into investment A, B, B to startups. So what does that mean? Can LPs have a say? No, they can't. I mean, they can say whatever they want, but legally they're giving the venture firm the authority to invest their money in. They can give their opinions, but they can't tell them what to do. Because there's that good faith that this venture capital firm is making the right decision based upon due diligence and any other method that they're trusting. And again, what's called Maria and Christine, would you like to add anything else?
I actually want to just correct that, Julius. For the VC firm takes it's often on average like a 2% management fee, but there's a 20% carry, which means like the return on investment after the investors are paid back what they actually invested. The amount above that is the return, right? And then the VC firm would take 20% of a carry from that profit. And then that's the way that the VC firm, like that kind of goes into the sustaining of the VC firm.
Well, thank you for that. So this is Christine, do you have anything you want to add?
No, Maria covered it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So this is essentially the basic skeleton of a venture capital firm. All right. And so angel investors are private individuals using their own wealth. The Securities Exchange Commission defines individuals gross income above 200K for 2 years, but 300K for spouse and partner, or $1 million net worth. And angel investors can invest individually by themselves in a startup, or they can join a syndicate. A group of angels investors decide to invest in a startup together. So this is an example from Page Doherty, someone I know. Essentially, it's gathering LPs. Again, in this case, these are angel investors, and SPVs are special purpose vehicle, which are essentially LLCs. So they're legal LLCs, and they invest in a startup. So as you can see in this diagram, the LPs, the angel investors come together and they decide like, hey, we want to invest in startup A. But in order to do that, an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is an LLC, is created, and then all the angels invest into that SPV for the purpose of that startup. Cool. So essentially, that's what syndicates are. Kristen and Maria, would you like to add anything on syndicates?
Oh, so I can share. So syndicates are also different. Just like each VC firm is different, they can have a different thesis, they can have different terms and structures. So if you are interested in being a part of one or the other, you'll really want to understand, like what those terms are. And then as a founder, you'll also want to understand, the syndicate, the VC firm, what's their thesis? Do I actually fit in their thesis? Because if you don't, like if they're only investing in the Philippines and you're, in Canada, like, it's not a fit, right? You're not going to fit the thesis. And you might have a very small chance that you would be considered as part of their portfolio. So you want to be really thoughtful and strategic about your time and who you approach. And angel syndicates could be different too. So some are structured this way, and some others, there's like a fee to be part of the syndicate, but then, they just bring in founders to come and pitch. So you may be asked to come and pitch, and you're just like pitching to their syndicate. You might be an invited founder. And then it'll be up to someone in the syndicate. If they want an intro to you, then they just facilitate an intro. So some go the SPV route, and then some could be, have a different model. So just wanted to share that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I
Okay,
also put in the chat just a link to the SEC accredited investor definition for those who may not be as familiar with it. So you could also take a look at not just the financial criteria, but other professional criteria for qualification, if that's of interest to you. Yeah. and happy, and I see some good questions coming in the chat, so excited to get to some of those later on. So please keep them coming. We're
Yeah.
monitoring the chat and look forward to the Q&A later. Over to you.
Yeah, cool, thank you. And supporting entities, the main one, there's different entities out there, but the main one that you will see and hear throughout is incubators and accelerators. And there's a difference. And an incubator is basically open-ended, typically essentially incubators is I have an idea, I don't have anything, I just have an idea, I'm gonna go through it. And they're usually the universities, major universities, so like from Stanford to even CSU and so forth. They have incubators just for students, and they don't take equity. And it's a long term, like, hey, you could be here for a couple of years, build out your idea, just let it grow. Essentially they all have training, mentoring, and business support, but it's in some physical space. But an incubator is kind of like a garden. You just let it, when the time's right, it'll grow. Accelerators is more like, no, we need you within months, have that thing, have your MVP that you have, and basically scale it. And a great example is Y Combinator. It's cohort based, and they typically take equity of a company. It just depends what we want, but usually an accelerator is fast paced. They expect you to have something, and be at least an MVP, and you will get the same resource like an incubator, but in a short amount of time. At the end, you will be a better company and founder than how you started. Compared to incubators, kind of like, okay, you just come with an idea, you can pivot as much as you want, we'll help you, but it's indefinite, like your time stay here. But accelerators like, no, ABC, we are in a strict regiment, and at the end, we want you to be successful. So those are kind of like the two you will see. In addition, there are other entities like some major cities have Startup Week or Startup Weekend and Tech Week, like San Francisco Tech Week, New York Tech Week, Los Angeles Tech Week, which is very activity. So again, there's a community aspect to this, and also nonprofit community orgs like my nonprofit Village Up to help diverse founders. So also be aware of also nonprofit entities are out there, and also these community groups that you can go to join Luma or meetup.com and put startups, and you will see different meetups, especially from founders, software developers, and so forth. So again, utilize those free apps. And there's some factoids. Why are we doing this? Because the US startup has a diversity issue. Let us not kid ourselves. It's great, but at the same time, there are some problems. Last year, 1.8 of all venture capital dollars in the US went to female founded companies. For Black founders, only 0.48%, not even 1% of all venture dollars in the US. And Rate My Investor surveyed 100K founders in the United States and found that 77.1% are white, while only 9.2 are female founders. You can do the math in regards to the diversity disparity. But again, it's a great opportunity, even though these are kind of sad factoids, we have an opportunity to change it, and again, it's through awareness and bringing everyone together. So, but essentially, this factoid is important because we need to just face the reality, where we again, but then there are mechanisms out there that are trying to help diverse founders and groups. And yeah, and that's about it. So let me unshare.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julius, and thanks everyone for those that have popped questions in the chat. Please continue to do so. We're gonna answer the first question, and then if someone wants to also come off mute and open their camera and ask a question, just raise your hand and we'll get to you as well. So Rose de Guzman asked the question, how do you decide which route to take? bootstrapping, VC, etc. So Julius, do you want to take that question? And then these questions,
yeah,
to let everyone know, these questions can be for the content, but Christine and I will also be here as well if there's any general questions. So go ahead,
yeah.
Julius.
Thank you. Yeah, so essentially you start with bootstrapping because you're just starting, right? But it doesn't mean you have to use your entire personal fund. Use the resources out there, SBDCs, small business development centers, free business advising, and that'll lead you to this gateway of here. You basically utilize free resource, okay? So keep the costs down. Yes, when you start, you have to use your own personal money unless you have that relationship with funders already. But even then, it's not things to prove. So um bootstrapping, yes, but also utilize free resource from the community.
Yeah, I would add to what Julius is saying is that also it depends, and it's like each founder's path is going to be unique to themselves. I met a founder who completely bootstrapped up to exit, up to acquisition. So that is possible. And that founder owned 100% of their company and got all of that profit. So that's something to just know. Seeking funding doesn't always have to be the path if you can bootstrap. But if you need to scale large, which is, the companies that Christine and I look for, then those are ones that, having some backing and also strategic partners and investors could be beneficial. But bootstrapping, there's a bit of an art there, and it's like everyone will have to bootstrap a little bit at the beginning. And for me, I always recommend to founders to be thinking about the finances from the very beginning. If you can have understand what those costs and revenues are, and like begin to start to do some financial modeling even from the very beginning, you can even use it to just inform your strategic decisions. You're in a much better place, and you can get to revenue at a much better pace.
Yeah, just to echo what Maria shared, a couple questions that I would have for this person. I think it's Rose. I don't know where you're at right now, but are you a first-time founder? Are you a solo founder? I think those are some important considerations on whether or not you might be ready for like VC or institutional funding. I think also to think about what Maria shared, like runway, like how much personal runway do you have financially to keep working on your startup without, needing a salary. um, like how much savings are in the bank or how much other income sources do you have, right? Keeping that in mind, because that creates your personal runway. Like, okay, I can play around and, I can work on the startup full time for like, let's say 6 months toward revenue generation. Otherwise I need to start getting a job, right, to pay for things, etc. So those considerations, I 100% agree with Maria on like modeling that out just from a personal standpoint, like what's going to be right for you, your family, those other considerations that you might have. And then, but I would say in general too, in an early stage, that control is important, because the minute that you are going to go out to fundraise, you're essentially giving up control over the company. And it's also that question for yourself, right? Are you ready to have other stakeholders at the table with a say on that decision that you're going to make? Or do you want that like complete autonomy to start with, so you have the flexibility to really decide like when to change direction, how fast you want to build, how, when to kind of pause a little bit and take time for health reasons or whatnot. So I think all of those different considerations, to echo Maria, very different for each person. But in general, my first question for any founder when we're talking about fundraising is, do you need to raise right now? do you need a raise right now? What are you really raising for? And like, let's have that conversation. So those are just some thoughts to add.
So thank you, Rose, for the first question. And Jeremy, feel free to take yourself off mute.
Yeah. Thank you guys again for putting everything together. And I just had a question on the SCC, knowledgeable employee, right? So what what does that really mean? Or does it just if I was gonna invest in SPV as a limited partner, but I was do I just sign something that says I'm a knowledgeable employee if I'm actually employed by the management company of a firm, for example? Or is there specific criteria that it has to be full-time? It can't be a consultant, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so you're saying you're potentially an employee fund that you want to invest in as well
Right.
as an LP.
Right.
Got it. Yeah, good question on the nuances. Quite frankly, like there isn't a detailed I guess response that I can give you at this time on that, like what is a knowledgeable employee per se, besides what's provided in the SEC website. But it is my understanding that, yeah, like full-time employees of a private fund would qualify to invest in that fund alone.
Right. Okay.
And then I would say check in with like your financial advisors and also the other like general partners of the fund, et cetera.
Sure.
Because they would have that responsibility as well to just make sure if they're the one that's offering they're the ones that are fundraising, then they also have that responsibility to know their investors, et cetera, and that they meet that criteria.
Yeah, this does have a second part. So in on the not necessarily the flip side, but in the same way, an employee of a startup, can vest on stock options. What have you guys seen in the VC industry? I'm gonna work for free for a year, and I want a escrow account against the fund to get a percent carry of whatever the GPs are willing to set aside. Have you seen anything like this, or different structures like that? I'd love to hear, some of those, what you guys have seen.
Maria, you want to kick off?
Yeah. So again, I think that can be kind of, there's a wide spectrum of what that could look like. I know I'll say for mine, I share my carry with my team. I have an incredible dedicated team that does a lot of work towards it. But I think that depends, that's up to each GP. I know some GPs do like, will share equity with venture partners. Their platform teams, may get a percentage or like equity stake of either the GP or of the management company if it's like they're actually going to be their platform team for multiple funds. So I think there's a wide range of options for that, but I definitely have seen that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I forgot I was the one queuing up the questions. All right. Thanks for that, Jeremy.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, great question. Michelle, you had a question about how far along should you be before it makes sense to start fundraising? So, Michelle, if you have any further, clarification that you want to provide, or if there's any specifics you want to provide.
Hi, sure. Nice to meet you. I guess my question sort of comes because, so I'm right now trying to be a first-time solo founder. I'm in that stage where I'm trying to hunt for a technical co-founder because I'm not technical. And I feel like I keep running into this chicken and egg situation where it's like the accelerator programs want you to have a co-founder and an MVP in order to get any money. But then it's like, I can't start building my MVP without money to pay for an engineer. So it's just trying to navigate, I guess, the timeline of building MVP versus like
Mm-hmm.
getting funding and knowing like the order of operations here that makes the most sense um, to move forward.
Yeah. Trust me, I run into founders all the time saying, I need a CTO, I need a CTO, I need a technical
Yeah.
founder because of that. Like,
Yeah.
it's situational, like in regards to startup. Usually, like some like they just chuck it and be like, I'm gonna outsource it for now. But that the
Mm-hmm.
danger is like that code, right? That's stuck with that
Mm-hmm.
person. And when you get CTO, it's like this complex, like this is what you gotta deal with, and then who knows if they're gonna jam with that. It just
Right.
depends. There's so many factors, and like what your startup, can you do something with like no code for now and attract like someone like, oh wow, this is like super MVP form, but I need someone to like level it up to that
Mm-hmm.
what I need you to for equity. But I will tell you, it's common for founders looking for a technical co-founder. It's an art, trust me. But this thing I think, can you like offboard it into an external software entity right now to build this thing for you? But then again, you want to consider
But
like
yeah.
the code, like, right? Like make sure like, hey, give me the code because I found a technical co-founder. So it's
Mm-hmm.
this weird dance that you gotta make sure protect again your idea. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if I can give you a clear answer, but at least
Yeah,
I'm
no,
telling
I
you what
know
I've
it's the
seen, some of the best practices out there. Because it's really, if you get lucky, if you get a technical profile tomorrow, do it. If you
yeah.
mash, do it. But here's what I'm seeing different dances of how people navigate that.
Yeah, I would say also think of fundraising as like one of the like last options. Like try to be
Mm-hmm.
as creative and resourceful and gritty as possible. Like Julius said, it might be a co-founder that you need, and that might solve kind of like a lot of the things that you're missing. But think of like investment is adding like you have a spark and you need like fuel to blow it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, there should be some clear um, like I've just gotten like 10,000 purchase orders and I need, I'm going to need to like fill these or else I'm going to lose it. Like those are things, something that's going to kind of take you to another level is what I would recommend thinking about when, you're going to be thinking about fundraising. Um, as early as possible, if you could go the routes of the bootstrapping or the family and friends or just being really like resourceful. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the beauty of entrepreneurship is like it
Yeah.
forces you to be
So
resourceful.
with family and friends, are they typically willing to invest already before you have an MVP, or is that not typical?
Um,
Um,
Typical.
yeah.
So it really depends. I would say
Okay.
yes, I've seen it happen.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, in early stage venture investing, you're investing on the founder. So they're betting
Mm-hmm.
on you. And so it really depends on the founder, right? What have they done? To Maria's point, I just want to echo, like there's so many free resources available there where you can start building some kind of MVP, even if it's just some really basic front end, but you can begin to validate your hypothesis for your startup
Mm-hmm.
with some real customer feedback. And so to the extent that you're like maximizing all of those avenues to get real customer feedback as early as possible, as cheaply as possible, that will increase your chances as you have these conversations, right, with friends and family or even other co-founders. Um, and and I definitely like highly recommend, you know, yeah, identifying a proper co-founder who can really share that vision with you and run with you as a
Mm-hmm.
co-builder. It's a very different dynamic than just, hiring someone to be your tech team, but really having a co-founder who shares that vision with you and can run with you. And at the end of the day, just with my investor hat on, I I see that as a stronger team that I would
Yeah.
more likely bet on if it's more than one person. And there's data again to show, right, the success rates of teams of co-founders versus just solo founders.
Yep.
But yeah, how far along should you be? As far as you can get, where you have market data to show that you don't have just an idea, but you have
Mhm.
something that has legs to become profitable. And I would say validate your like business model assumptions as soon as you can. Because there's some
Mhm.
cases where you'll get a bunch of free clicks, like people are interested in this because it's free, it's free, it's free. But like the minute you start, putting some kind of price tag on it, I think that's where the real validation comes. And the sooner that you can get to that, even doing things that don't scale, like the front end is a website, behind the scenes it's all manual, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
So do what you can, and then you'll have a much stronger case for the fundraising conversations, because the reality is fundraising is like a full-time job in itself. And
Yeah.
so I would say, for as long as you can, work on the product and like talk with customers, like get to work on that piece before and then like, yeah, because fundraising is just going to take hours. And that's hours away from your product, and so as far as you can, as cheaply as you can.
Also want to
Thank
add,
you.
pitch competitions. All right, they have prizes like enter pitch competition. If you don't win, you're telegraphing to the folks in the audience like, hey, I'm doing this. My mentee got 30K from pitch competition before she has something. So if you can get into that circuit, get your name out there, and yeah, free resources. Stella Foundation, they do an annual one. So yeah, I help judge that. So things to consider, and that's for women founders. Stella
Yeah,
Foundation.
and the Dream Bigger Challenge. I
Yeah,
mean,
that too.
it's a pitch
You got a
competition.
mark, Michelle. Get your
You
idea
know?
together.
It needs an MVP though.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, again, I would say, think about it, just come up with something, right?
Yeah.
Where it's out of your brain and it's out in the market in some way. It can even be a Google survey, like whatever, I don't know what your idea is. I'm making stuff up, but just
Yeah.
something to show some kind of market validation.
Okay.
And that like tenacity, right, that you have as a founder, that even without resources, like you're doing stuff that
Yeah.
the market is seeing valuable. I think at the end of the day, that's important. But thank you for your question. Yeah,
Michelle.
I hope we will see you more. See this idea of yours come to life.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. Rose.
Thank you.
Rose, did you have a follow-up question?
I do, yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I had a question regarding combining philanthropic with doing a startup. And in the basis of mine, the problem that I'm trying to address really is within the scientific community. I am a scientist by training, a neuroscientist, and I'm first gen in all of that, community college to PhD and postdoc. And the key problems that I have been realizing is that a lot of people are leaving. So there is retention issues. We're also having issues with recruitment. And there's also issues with, reproducibility of data. And what I have been trying to do, and even voluntarily, is speak with a lot of students, help guide them, help address their issues, and also speak with students in the Philippines as well. And so how do I go about, I guess, exploring this avenue of starting something that goes beyond volunteering and doing philanthropic work? Because the first time that I was even offered to be paid to speak in the Philippines or here, I'm like, wait, what, really? Like I didn't even expect that, but this is a passion of mine that like I care about the scientific community, but I also care about keeping science within the Philippines, because we're having issues with a lot of, like brain drain. And so it's like, how can we keep resources within the Philippines and how can we partner with, as a startup, with folks within the Philippines?
Yeah, Rose, great question. And for one, I want to share like it doesn't have to be that you do good or you make money. You know, like it actually, you can do more good by making money. So that's one thing that I just want to, offer you, like what you're wrestling with right now. I think there's, I would say even like culturally, I've wrestled with that, and realized there were big things that I wanted to do that I just didn't have the capital to back myself. So there's, like you solving big problems and monetizing that actually positions you to be able to solve even bigger problems. So I just want to I want to encourage you about that.
And
And another thing is Julius talked about lean startup. Like I'm a big advocate for lean startup.
Mhm.
That methodology can help you just kind of, get to understanding what a business model could be to solve this problem. And approach it like a business. You're doing good, but you have to really think about it as a business. So, approach it that way, let your values and your mission guide you. And so Christine or Julius,
yeah,
anything?
yeah. So I started in the Philippine community with leadership development for FilAm high school and college for like over a decade. Free 99. Actually, money comes out. Like I spent over $2,000 on them. I don't regret, but guess what? Past 3 years, I was actually getting paid for now creating leadership programs. I used to do it for free for college students still, and I'm like, I used to do this for free. So I found myself that journey. Like I wasn't in it for the money. It was like, oh, you want to pay me? That's cool. So that opportunity will arise. Just keep doing what you're doing. If it's free, if you want to do it for free, but something I feel like you will get paid later. You'll see the business side because Maria is right. You need to make it sustainable. Now I'm creating like, okay, I have an LLC, got a full partnership. Now I'm being asked to develop like leadership programs professionally that I used to do for free. So keep doing what you're doing, and something I guarantee you'll meet what that is along this road, and people will help you. It's not just gonna be you. People are gonna inspire you, and you're gonna see that model and reach out to all of us and be like, we will give you ideas, and something's gonna click down the road. Like, you know what? I'm gonna keep it financially sustainable while do good. Because you could do both. I never thought I could until I joined the startup world. I'm like, wait, I could, and I could do it in a good way. Not in this easy way. Like I could do it in a very meaningful way. So just keep doing what you're doing, and you will whatever that is. I swear, it'll click down the road. Like, yep. And guess what? If it doesn't work, there'll be other opportunities. Like, well, I'll just pivot.
Hey, Rose, were you born in the Philippines? Were you raised in the Philippines?
Yes, I was raised in the Philippines. Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Well, I would love to chat more. We're on a similar
Definitely.
journey. That's what Dream Bigger is all about, is really supporting Filipino-led startups. We actually started first in the Philippines in 2021 and really supporting Philippine-based startups. And now, we're expanding out our support to founders in the US or North America. But that idea of like bridge building and how do we fill in those gaps, that exist in the Philippines, is a big part of my why and why I do what I do. And I also did a lot of research throughout the years and just trying to better understand the challenges in the Philippines. And at the end of that search, my conclusion was like philanthropy is not going to be enough, nor is like government, change or policy going to be enough. The marketplace is really where it's at, but that's what's going to move the needle and create the sustainable solutions that are truly going to transform the Philippines. And that's why I'm on this journey now and would love to hear more about what is on your mind, what's in your heart, and like, explore what those opportunities could be.
Yeah. And Rose, I want
Absolutely.
to
Thank you
say
so much.
very on a very similar journey. That's actually how Christine and I met. is and what brought me to VC. So what I do hope is that you have like a little over a month or about a month that you could put that problem that you're trying to solve down onto a canvas and start testing it, and like who knows, I mean, that might give you something to just even get started, and whether it's this year or next year, who knows. So I encourage you for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Rose. And Bill, you have a question about the Dream Bigger Challenge. And if it needs to be a Filipino American US citizen, or if it could be a Filipino immigrant living in the US. Would you
Yeah,
like
I
to?
think
Yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
I can quickly answer that. Yeah, I think the Filipino building in the U.S., but the entity is incorporated in the U.S. That's really key. So the entity incorporation in the U.S.
Oh yeah. Thank you for answering that question.
Thank you, Bill. Good to see you again.
Wanko Sirkinya, you asked, are investors prioritizing sales growth or profitability in this current market? Christine, do you want to go?
Depends who you ask, but there's definitely, much more appetite to see profitability in this current market for sure. Um, and and I do think it is a tough market, and founders that are able to navigate this tough environment and still come out profitable are really like outstanding. They just sort of set themselves apart in some way, which is much more attractive to investors right now.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
And on the founder side, don't use hype saying, okay, the latest hype is AI. Don't say AI just so you can try. Do actually what you care about and want to do. All right. Don't say, oh, we're gonna add crypto, or like, don't. Even though this is what's getting funded right now in the market, if it doesn't make sense for you, like, don't. Just stay true to what you believe in. Like, don't clickbait, basically, or else investors are gonna find out, like, wait, what's going on? So again, just even though it's a tough market, just do what you believe in. Whatever product you're building, don't add on because it's the coolest thing.
Yes, and I would say this is actually the time. I think this is the time for the underserved founders, because what I've been finding is I have not been having trouble with deal flow of founders that are getting great traction, being really resourceful and gritty with their runway, and and I think it's because underserved founders are not kind of waiting for someone to come and save them. They're not kind of relying on, just the, relationships and promise, their heads down delivering. And I think that's what speaks volumes in this market. Thanks for your question. I think we've gone through all the questions. So if anyone wants to come on camera, come off mute, ask a question. About 13 more minutes. I also have another option. Do we want to do some just introductions? Since we have about 13 more minutes, just if folks want to just introduce themselves, or if anyone wants to talk about, do just a live pitch here, something that they're working on.
Let's go.
I'd love that. Yeah, anyone want to share an idea?
We're all family here.
Oh, Megan had a question, Maria.
Yes. Oh, Megan. How can someone with an entrepreneurial mindset who is still very early in the career stay connected with the ecosystem until they are ready to launch? Great question, Megan. So Christine, do you want to share about the?
Yeah. Julius, do you mind putting the next step slide back up.
Okay, hold on. Do you see?
And
Okay.
now we can, yeah, at the end.
Okay, is it the bottom? Is it this
Yeah,
one?
42, yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so as far as next steps, you know, we highly encourage folks on this call, if you have an idea, you have about 4+ weeks to still apply to pitch at the Dream Bigger Challenge for a chance to win grant prizes and services up to 20K. Again, that's essentially free money, no equity tied to that. It's just our way of wanting to support more Filipino American entrepreneurs. So we hope that you'll seriously consider it, and do reach out to us if you have questions about the Dream Bigger Challenge and the application. We're here to help. And then the next thing is we invite you to join our new LinkedIn group. You can search Filipino Founders North America, and that's going to be open to anyone on this call, aspiring or current founders who just want to stay connected. And we'll, you know, continue to build out this community over the next few months and find ways that we can stay connected, whether it's through another webinar like this on another topic, or or maybe even in person at the Dream Bigger Challenge on October 25th over in the Bay Area. So do join us, and then we'll also be sending an email out to folks who registered for this call, you know, with a quick, simple survey, just asking what else you would like to see, so we can support you on your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, so I think that gets to Eddie's question as well about how to stay connected, how to do some give and get.
What's it called? Yeah, also in regards to stay connected, if there's an entrepreneur community in your city where you're living in, get involved. That's how I got involved in 2016. I was a nonprofit guy. I had no business being a startup, but they were welcoming, and I just immersed myself and just learn all this. Like, so stay involved, because again, once you get involved, even as a founder, trust me, we all talk in regards to all the as ecosystem builder. We see you. We see like who are the ones who are hungry, and those are the ones we help out, because we see them at events. They're like applying for pitching, and they're doing, and you know, again, we're observant too. Like investors are observant. As ecosystem builders, we're observant, but like, okay, they're a good one, especially even like my students. I know who are my good students are, like, they're hungry, they will get something and just like, oh. So again, just show you're hungry. Just go there, be active. That's it. Just be there, active, talk about your company, and build good relations. And trust me, we love that. Like, I will do more for that person than someone like, man, like, I never seen you, you're that's cool. But if I start seeing you at events and you're actually getting engaged, I'm like, cool, like, what do you need? I got you.
Yeah, and I would just encourage for all of us just to continue to practice, right? Like this is this is a muscle, you know, it might be a newer muscle that we're building, and it will take some practice. That's the whole thing with Lean Startup, is you just kind of like you build and you learn from it, right? And you just go through some iterations. And so continue to like explore and test things out, and you know, and know that like you're going to go through iterations of companies as well. You may not get it on the first shot, and that's just like everyone else. So we just really encourage you to continue to do that, and know now that this LinkedIn community is a first start to community across the nation that you can reach out to. So yes, Bill, great question. We have this recording, and for all of those that registered, you will get a copy of the recording sent back to you. All right. So with that, I think we could probably give you a little time back. Any final thoughts, Julius or Christeen?
Since the LinkedIn group, I'm doing a core program for first-time founders. It's simulating the early stage journey. There's gonna be a mock investor meeting, and then also just kind of like what happened situation. I just ran it. The second cohort, I just finished, it's a 3-week virtual program, and so it's a good way to just understand just a glimpse. And essentially my thesis in the program is make the big mistake here and not in real life. So be on the lookout. I'll put it in the what's called in the LinkedIn group when cohort 2 is ready. So again, their services are out there and programs. Take advantage.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Christine, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Julius, Maria, for partnering on this great webinar, and really encouraged to see this group here and the questions that we received. I'm really excited to meet y'all in person and to see these ideas come to life. We hope to see you in person October 25 in the Bay Area at the Dream Bigger Challenge, where we'll bring this kind of conversation in an in-person forum. So hope to see you all there.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and thanks to our partners. And Lucky C Up is out there from FilPro. Thank you to FilPro for being a partner with us as well. Thanks everyone.
Take care. Good night.
Bye.